אבדה כבר הדרך שאליה מכוונים האנשים רבים כבר עברו בין שביליה.
Shalom guys, my name is Alexander Hernandez. I am the youth leader for Casa de Israel Jara. I thank you for your attention tonight for this teaching. We're going to be talking about Parasha Bamidbar. But in this story, study of the scriptures, I want you to take a moment to open your mind and leave your emotions at the beginning of this video. And why do I say that to you? Because I want you to be able to be open-minded, to learn something new, and to not let our personal emotions conflict with what maybe the Father wants to present for us today. And so I thank you for this opportunity. So the way that we're going to approach this teaching is, I don't know if you guys have been or had these experiences when there's two people having a conversation and they're having a conversation for a little while, probably an hour or two, and then this third person which comes in and basically gives their opinion about the conversation that's been going on for so long, and establishes their own opinion or chooses sides without really knowing the context of the conversation or what the conversation is about. So that's what religion has done for us. Religion has basically taken a conversation and jumped in the middle of it and ran away with whatever they want. Right? That's what we've been taught. We've been taught to believe the first part of the book and leave the back or the front behind because it's done. But we never have taken time to really pay attention to what the first book or the first part of the book teaches us. And that's what we're going to do today. And so, us being the third person in, or the third wheel, whatever you want to call it, we have to understand that there is a context and a history in the Bible that we do not know or we do not comprehend. So, Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. The first term we're going to talk about is archetypes. Archetypes is the original pattern or model from which all things of the same kind are copied or on which they are based. A model or a first form. Basically, it's a prototype. Archetypal discussions by definition focus on the connectedness of relationship because an archetype imperative or an exemplar and thus establishes a pattern and stands as a representative of a specific class. Connectivity and relationship are vital in trying to understand an ancient sense of personal and corporate identity. One aspect of this can be seen in Akkadian wordplay. The literature connects the term man, awilu, within the term for God, which is ilu. Also in Hebrew, wordplay connection is offered when it's an archetypal nature by indicating that the term Adam is appropriate since the man is drawn from Adamah, the ground, and Isha, woman, is taken from the Ish, man. In the ancient Near East, one might claim that given the collective nature of their self-understanding and even self-awareness had a fundamentally archetypal value. The modern concept is in fact long way removed from the view of the ancients. In the ancient cultures such as Mesopotamia, the human person is understood as a character or a role, rather than a personality or an individual. They were also interested in the archetype of the cosmos, the connection between the cosmos and creation, the purpose of being. The Egyptians show no source or explanation for creation of humans. The Sumerians and the Akkadian source consistently portray people as having been created to do the work of the gods, the essential to continue the goods, meaning that they will do the work that the gods got tired of doing themselves. So, ancient Near Eastern mentality and their cultural mindset was that they wanted to connect with gods or the gods and the cosmos, and their function was based on a model of they were slaves of the gods, and they were meant to do and fulfill the functions that the gods got tired of doing. And in the case, they will fulfill the gods' needs and represent them, meaning that they were taking care of the god and their needs. But in Israel, Yahweh, Elohim is making a distinction in this mindset, because we have to understand Israel is around this type of culture. Israel comes out of Egypt. In Egypt, their system, they basically worship or are more interested in the afterworld, right, and death than in life. And so Israel is taken out of this world of cultures and opinions about gods and how they should approach them. And Israel basically believes that, yes, they've been created to serve God. The difference was that they saw humanity as having been given a priestly role in a sacred space rather than a slave labor to meet the needs of a deity. God planted the Garden of Eden to provide food for people rather than people providing food for God. Right? God here is making a distinction because ancient Near Eastern people believed that they would bring sacrifices to the gods and feed the gods and nourish the gods so that they can be satisfied and fulfill their duties as gods and maintain the peace in the camp. But Elohim tells us that He provides for us. He's our creator. He's our provider. Our duty is to obey and to listen and be mature enough to understand that. In Mesopotamia, the cosmos and the functions for the gods in relation to them. People are an afterthought, seen as just a part of the cosmos that helps the gods function. In Israel, the cosmos functions for people in relationship to them. God does not need the cosmos, but has determined to dwell in it, making it a sacred space. It functions for people. So basically, they believe that, or they understood that the cosmos surrounded around God. But here we understand that the cosmos is for us, right? And we have to understand that even though the cosmos is for us and we are in charge of maintaining it, we have to understand that it was given to us by God. And creation, we have to maintain it, but we always have to understand that it was provided by God. That's our responsibility. The book of Numbers, or Bamidbar, derives from the fact that this book, the Israelites are counted and numbered on several occasions. In Leviticus ends with Yahweh instructing His people to count their flock for the tithe purposes, while Numbers begins with Yahweh as the ultimate good shepherd, counting the Israelites themselves, who are the sheep of the pasture. The fact that this counting took place in the wilderness proves that it was not a political or national economic reason, but was a fulfillment of Yahweh's Torah instructions. Each Israelite was given a half shekel, or a silver, towards the maintenance of the tabernacle. The shekels were then counted and will give the exact number of Israelites. The Hebrew word Bamidbar, meaning in the wilderness, originates from the fact that the book of chronicles Israel's wanderings in the wilderness. The book of Exodus, on the other hand, records the deliverance of Israel from Egypt. It establishes a nation, its covenantal relationship with Yahweh, and the construction of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, which was the symbol of Yahweh dwelling on the midst of His chosen people. The book of Leviticus deals with the inner workings of the tabernacle and the mechanics of how sinful man can maintain a right spiritual relationship with the righteous God, Elohim. This was accomplished through the agency of the Levitical priesthood that will function within the tabernacle as human intermediary between man and his creation. Or creator, excuse me. So, here in this slide we see that the beginning of Numbers is a census, right? They're called to count the people and all the first of the young men of 20 years or above to serve in basically the military. And so this is how the camp is designed after the book of the Bamidbar starts, right? The book of Numbers. And what we can see here, besides all of the deep spiritual teachings that you can bring out of here, the simplest thing that you can see is order and structure. God is showing Israel now a structure and an order that they have to march towards a promised land, so that they can represent Him, right? If we understand that every ancient civilization that is surrounding Israel right now understands that they were delivered from Egypt and that Egypt was defeated by Yahweh, right? And so there's many ancient civilizations that will challenge Israel because they don't understand the power of Elohim yet. And so Elohim wants them to not only represent Him spiritually and morally, but He wants them to understand that there's a structure, there's order, and the way that they're going to represent Him in image, their power and their strength is in this organization that they have. And if you see, every tribe is centered and surrounded with God in the middle, which is important because God is Elohim, is the center of our life, and He's the main focus on what our life should be, right? Our life should be focused on centering God in the middle of everything that we plan and do in our life, so that way we can find the balance and the structure needed to grow and move forward. Exodus 25, 8 through 9, right? And you might be thinking, why are we going back? Why are we going back to the book of Exodus? Well, there's an aspect before we move into the book of Bamidbar that we have to understand, and it is that the spiritual side to this is very important, but we have to understand what it is. And it says, verse 8, and let them make a sanctuary that I may dwell in their midst, exactly as I show you concerning the pattern of the tabernacle and all of its furniture, so you shall make it. Right, so Elohim shows Moses the design of the tabernacle from the heavens, right? So the Torah, the tabernacle, the priests, the organization of the tribes in the camp, all these laws and instructions are heavenly archetypes. They're heavenly blueprints. They embody how the cosmos works in heaven, how you connect to God, right? And all these people in the ancient world want to understand this, and God has given it to Israel to be an example and show them this is how you approach the creator of everything. So with that being said, we jump into Yeshua, Jesus. And from here, many people tend to say from Jesus on, the heavenly structure is done away with because we don't need it. But that makes no sense, because many of us either believe that heaven is going to be established here, or many believe that they're going to heaven and they're going to be in a heavenly realm, right? Well, let's understand something. We tend to say that Jesus said this, but Jesus didn't say this. Jesus is a rabbi, right? Let's use our tool of common sense for it now. Jesus is a rabbi. Jesus did not have the New Testament. So Jesus is a rabbi that studied the Torah, the prophets, and the extra biblical books like the Mishnah and the Talmud, right? And so Jesus is a student of this, and his teachings as a rabbi, as a rabbinical teacher, is based on Torah. So Jesus and his message cannot be against Torah. Right? So Jesus' message is against people that add to the Torah or take away from it. But the fundamental core of Jesus' teachings is follow the commandments. And if you don't believe me, let's go through the verse. Matthew chapter 5. Verse 17 through 20. 20. It says, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth have passed away, not a jot or not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes on one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. So, many people will use this verse to teach you that he accomplished the law, and in his death and resurrection, everything is done away with. But if that's so, Jesus contradicts his words, and that cannot be. Because if we pay attention to what he's saying and we're listening, he says, whoever relaxes on one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. And that is not a topic of if you have access to heaven. It means that if you want heaven, if you want to be part of heaven, or if you want to go to heaven, or if you believe heaven is coming, you have to understand that the Torah isn't heaven, right? The Torah is a blueprint of heaven's judicial structure. The tabernacle is a blueprint, an archetype of what the temple looks like or what it represents in the heavens. The priesthood is an archetype and a blueprint of how the priesthood works in the heavens. The organization that we see in the book of Numbers, in the beginning of the book of Numbers, is a structural and a organization order that is based on heavenly order. So this heavenly revelation that we see in the books of the Torah are heavenly design. So if you're a believer in the Bible, whether you're Catholic or Christian, right? And these are religious systems that base their belief system on the Bible. That's where they are addressed in this video. You have to understand that if you want to go to heaven, what you will find in heaven is this: the Torah, the tabernacle or temple, the priesthood, and the order and structure that God established, not yours. We have to be mature enough to understand and listen. Our biggest weakness is we're not open to listening. At the end of this book that we're going to study in the next couple of weeks, we're told that Israel had hardly advanced on their path, but we're in the same place where the story has began right now. The only change that had taken place in them was that they had acquired more wisdom because of how much they had suffered because of their lack of faith. We have to understand that the story of Israel contains the blueprint of heaven and how heaven works and how we are supposed to be working here on earth as a kingdom of God. But it gives us a very good example of what disobedience can bring to us. Like I told you last week, we have to be mature and obedient to understand that God is speaking to us. But we gotta be willing to listen, right? And we have to be willing to listen and find our identity and our destiny and our direction in the Word of God. If we don't listen and we're not sensitive to His Word, and we don't take time to meditate in His Word and stop implementing our opinions in it, we will not be able to grow. So we have to understand that if you want to be part of the kingdom, you have to be able to listen and be obedient to the heavenly instructions, which is the Torah. Be interested in knowing the house, the way the house works. How do you approach God, and the order and the structure that it brings to your life, to your family, and to your community. You have to be self-aware of who you are and what function you have in the system. You have to be aware of what you're doing, not only to represent God, but to represent your family. Right? Like I said, we're agents to do justice and righteousness, and we have to be good people. Right? One side teaches us that we have to fulfill the commandments, and they're very rigorous, and another side teaches us that you just have to be good. But we have to understand that you have to connect both of them. You have to obey, you have to be justice and righteous, and you have to connect those things, and that is the kingdom of heaven. That is what Yeshua's people look like. So, please be obedient, be understanding, be open-minded to listen to the word, not men. I am a mere man. I am trying to teach you that if you follow the commandments, you will not obtain salvation, because salvation you have obtained it through Yeshua HaMashiach. But if you follow the commandments, you'll find grace in God's eyes, and you have access to the heavenly kingdom, and you will be able to dwell in it in peace and in shalom. I thank you for this opportunity, and I'll see you next week. Shabbat shalom.